You know, there's certain organizations I tend to look at with a little bit of a closer eye than other organizations for obvious reasons, and one of the organizations I'm definitely constantly looking at is the New England Patriots, just because of the way they consistently are able to find very talented players. I've often said when it comes to Bill Belichick, it's up for debate whether or not he's the best coach of all time, but I don't think it's up for debate that he is the best general manager of all time. He has just such an eye for talent, and one of the talented players he picked up was Chase Winovitch. Oftentimes I wouldn't be talking about a third rounder who was picked with the 77th overall pick, but when you're a defensive end who gets picked by Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, you tend to look at things with a closer eye, and there's a very good reason this guy was selected, and let's just jump into why. Like, for one thing, this guy just has a motor that doesn't stop. This guy is just constantly at 100%. This guy is always going. Like on this play, Winovitch is going to be in the top half of the screen, so he's going one-on-one against the left tackle, and notice what's going to happen once this ball is snapped. So first things first, he's going to try to get around and over the top of that tackle, and one way he's doing that is by putting his right arm right there on the tackle's left side of his body. And so basically what he's going to do is he's going to just push with all his might on that right side of his hand. He's basically going to try to make sure that he gets around the tackle regardless of what happens after that. It works, and it does get him past that tackle, but look at where he is now. He's completely taken out of the play, it seems like, because he's so far up to the top half of the screen comparative to anybody else on this play. And not to mention, the Florida Gators quarterback is actually going to start running down to the bottom half of the screen in a second. So this now means he's going to have even farther to run, but look at how he just completely runs over. There's no quitting that guy. Despite the fact that he got moved all the way up to the top half of the screen, still finds a way to get off the tackle, run over, and be a part of this play. That might be one of the reasons he was drafted, is more so of his intangibles than his tangibles. And I guess it's not really an intangible, but not really something that might show up on the score sheet is something like effort. You can't teach effort, you can't teach heart, but Winovitch definitely has both of those things. This guy gives his all on every play. He's just one of those guys where he's going to give his all on every play, and he can buy into that Patriots way. I think at the very least, this guy can at least be a solid guy off the bench. Having someone with that motor who will give 100% every play, having him just come in for limited snaps can actually be really beneficial of someone who's just going to be kind of a pest more than anything. He's definitely the type of guy that's probably going to get by more on technique than he is on just, overall skill, overall talent that he was born with. But you know what? Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes those are the guys that can actually be more impactful, because he's not the type of guy that's just going to coast. He's the type of guy that's going to give his all on every play. When you're drafting a guy, oftentimes you do draft someone based on potential, not necessarily what they are right now. But that's not to say he's not good right now. He's pretty good right now as well. One thing I like about him actually is his first step. His first step is very key, and this one will be a great example of showing exactly why it is. That's where he is on the screen, and it's going to be a run to the top half of the screen. And so this is actually interesting, because what Florida is going to do here is not have that tight end go over to block Winovitch like you might expect him to. Instead, they're going to have the left tackle kind of move over to the top half of the screen and then try to block him. So this is definitely going to be kind of a tough block for a tackle to make. But if you can pull it off, it can actually be a very good situation. What Florida's tackle has to do is get up to the top half of the screen kind of just by one step. And once he does that, Winovitch will just naturally move over to the left side of the screen, and then you can just push him down to the bottom half of the screen, making sure he clears out of the way and giving a gap for the running back to run over. That's basically the way it's supposed to work. But the problem is you still do have to stop Winovitch. You can't just let him get completely by you to the bottom half of the screen. Because as you see right now, while the tackle is trying to get into position, Winovitch is already off. He's easily able to get by and gets held, which is why he wasn't a part of that play. And also, another Florida Gator wasn't able to make their block, so that ended up being a huge win for Michigan. But that's kind of the guy Winovitch is. He's a good first step, very good technical player more than anything. Maybe not the most talented compared to some other guys, which is why he went in the third round. But I certainly do feel like this is the type of guy who you could absolutely see making a key sack in like an AFC championship game or something. He just strikes me as that kind of guy. Maybe he's not going to be Khalil Mack, but chances are you're not going to get Khalil Mack in the third round. And I do feel like this guy has a really high upside. I'm actually a little surprised he fell this far, because what he's put on tape is very impressive. Although I have to be honest, there are some downsides for him as well. While yes, I just praised him for the fact that he has a high motor and gives 110% every play, that can kind of have its downsides as well. Like as of right here, for example, that's where he is on the screen, and this is going to be an RPO, so it could be a run to the bottom half of the screen, or it could be a handoff to the top half of the screen, meaning that Winovitch is actually kind of in a little bit of a pickle here. Because, in an RPO, the whole point of it is basically to take a blocker out of the way. Where if Winovitch fears it could be a quarterback run, he'll stay too far to the top half of the screen, and then he just hand it off and he's taking himself out of the play. However, if he fears it's going to be just a standard handoff, then he might run too far to the bottom half of the screen, and then a Florida Gators quarterback could keep the ball himself and run around him to the top half of the screen. So that's the way this is supposed to work. But take a look at how Winovitch is going to completely crash in to try to stop the halfback here, and really isn't going to be preparing for a potential quarterback run whatsoever. Not just that, but he actually tumbles falls over an offensive lineman who is already on the ground and takes himself out of the play, and this is a huge reason why this ended up being a solid run. It's a mistake from Winovitch for sure, and it's actually something that you'll see him do quite frequently. Like here, he'll do it again. This time not as extreme, but it is still kind of him doing it. And what's going to happen is it's going to actually just be a straight up run, this time straight up the middle, and then the tight end is going to actually pull over to block him over there. And so once again, take a look at how Winovitch just crashes in here. He's fully preparing for a handoff, which again, I would say is a bad thing, but it's actually not a terrible thing because he's not as close in as he was in that last play. Not to mention, since this was actually a handoff, this was the correct decision for him to make. So, I can't really blame him for this one, but I'm just kind of showing this play to show that he will do this quite frequently, is crash in a little bit more. He probably would have even made this play if that tight end didn't go incredibly low on that block, and you even see him get up and kind of say, hey, where's the flag there? He went at my knees. You shouldn't go at somebody's knees. But the reality is, those kind of things can absolutely have drawbacks. It's not just a small thing that I'm nitpicking, and especially against NFL-level head coaches and offensive coordinators, the amount of tape these guys watch, if there is any weakness you have in your game, they will find it and they will find a way to exploit it. And in fact, Florida did that in this very game. What they're going to do here is fake as though it's just going to be a standard run, straight to the top half of the screen, which is what you would expect if the halfback is over to the bottom half of the screen. But instead, it's actually going to be a pitch to the halfback, and that's key because this is where Winovitch is. He's right over there, and I'm assuming they're calling this play because they know where he's going to be lined up. Because watch how he's totally going to crash into the middle and try to disrupt the play as you would if it was a typical play. It's not a terrible thing to do, but it is something he constantly does, and you do have to be more aware of making sure that you don't give up containment here, which he just isn't doing right here, and he hasn't done it for several plays. It's probably his biggest flaw, I would say, up to this point. Because now he's crashed in, they can simply just toss it to the halfback, and he's able to pick up a first down. That is kind of maybe his one flaw, I would say, is the fact that he kind of gets a little excited, and he kind of goes for something, even if it's maybe not the best thing to be going for, and he can get fooled from time to time. And it can also just not work out, which is another thing that can definitely happen. Like, what's going on here, it's going to be a one-on-one block against the right tackle, and it's going to be a passing play, so he's rushing the passer here. One thing you'll see him do is take a very wide angle, and he's going to try to get around the tackle to the left side of the screen. That's what he's trying to do here. So with that wide angle, the tackle really can't get perfect hand placement. Ideally you want to get the shoulder pad and the pec, but you can't really do that because he took such a wide angle. Now the tackle is basically going to have to put his right arm basically on the rib cage right there, on Winovitch's right rib cage, and then the tackle's right hand is going to definitely be far over from where he would want it to be. It's going to kind of be on Winovitch's chest. But from here, the tackle is still going to be able to push him out of the way and win his matchup. Now Winovitch does a great job of hustling and trying to get back into the play, so I do like that part about him, but if he was just a little bit quicker or a little bit stronger, he probably gets a sack there and it's not a first down. But the tackle was able to hold on, win his matchup, and that's how the quarterback was able to escape. Here's another example of a very similar play, where this time he's going to the top half of the screen and he's going up against the left tackle. Once again, as you'll see, going around very wide, and this time it actually worked perfectly as he was quick enough to get completely by that tackle. I mean, honestly, this is seemingly just like a dream scenario. He got completely by the tackle, and now, he should be able to easily run over to the quarterback. But there's actually going to be one problem, and it's the kind of problem that usually isn't the problem. His other edge rusher also did a great job of winning his one-on-one matchup, but the one problem is they're both going to the left side of the screen, meaning all the quarterback has to do is take a step up, and both Michigan players actually end up running into each other, and Winovitch was not able to make a play despite the fact that he was quick enough to get around the tackle. Winovitch is kind of like a bull in a lot of ways, where, he goes very quickly in one direction. However, if he has to move around different directions, that's when he kind of has some problems. I mean, granted, it probably should be mentioned that as a whole, that was a good play for Michigan because it was an incomplete pass, and also the quarterback was disrupted a little bit. He did have to step up in the pocket, and he knew his time was limited. I think many players would rather have a positive impact on the play than, have to get up and rub some dirt off of you. And Winovitch's high motor can actually have some really positive impacts as well. It's not all negative whatsoever. Like as of right here, this is going to be pretty simple, but it's actually pretty impressive as well, where it's going to be a run to the top half of the screen, and Winovitch is on the bottom half of the screen. So conventional wisdom would tell you this is a play that Winovitch just wouldn't have too much to do with here, and in fact, he's actually not even going to be blocked on this play. However, that's going to be a mistake. Notice how he has the speed to run all the way up to the top half of the screen, gets a little bit of help with some good Michigan play from that top half of the screen, but is still able to get the tackle out of it despite the fact that he wasn't blocked because he wasn't supposed to be a part of this play. Honestly, it just all comes back to hustle. It all comes back to giving it your all every single play, and you have to give him a lot of credit for giving it his all on every single play. I know it's going to kind of sound cliche because he is a white guy playing a position that's not a lot of white guys, but he's scrappy. I mean, really, that is a great way to describe him. Yes, I realize that that's, like, of course, I'm calling the one white guy that, of course, the Patriots drafted scrappy. But, I mean, it really is. That's a great way to describe him. But again, the scrappiness and the I'm going to give my all on every play, it has its downsides. And not just the obvious ones, but also one like this, and you'll see what I mean when I'm at the end of this play, not necessarily at the beginning of this play. Because at the beginning of the play, that's where Winovitch is, and it looks like he's going to be going up against a tight end, but that's actually not the case. The tight end is going to be running a route. That's actually one of the ways you can really take him out of the play, is by having a tight end lined up next to the tackle, but still have that tight end run a route. Because if you do that, this now means that he's just naturally going to try to run around both the tight end and the tackle, because that's what he does. He's more of a speed guy than anything else. But when he does this, and the tight end doesn't run out, this now gives the tackle plenty more time, and it actually is a pretty good way to make sure that you can kind of counteract his speed, especially when he's not one of those guys that can overpower you if you are off balance. So this point is a very good block. He is going to actually be able to get off this block and get close to the quarterback, and look at this still right here. He's clearly not going to get to the quarterback. It's kind of over at this point. The quarterback is basically throwing the ball right now, and he's still a couple of steps behind him. However, Winovitch hits him, and not only does he hit him, but he actually hits him at a pretty bad spot, and he draws a flag. I'm not going to hate on him too much for this. I mean, that is a hard play. You know, you're trying so hard to get to the quarterback, and just at a split second you have to make this decision. You'll see it in slow motion. I mean, it's a tough play to make, but they are going to throw those flags if you hurt a guy, and that's kind of what Winovitch did. You would like a guy who can kind of avoid those penalties if possible. I don't know how possible that would be for a guy like Winovitch. I think every now and then he just is going to have a play like that. Maybe not roughing the passer, but every now and then he is going to have a play where he just goes too far because he kind of has to, because that's how he's made it to this point in his career. So there are some downsides, but as a whole, I think for a third-round pick, he's about as good of a guy as you can ask for. And let's be honest, the Patriots have a pretty good history of drafting players out of Michigan to be successful, so I'll pretty much have faith in whatever Bill Belichick does. I figure if he's going to make a decision, it'll probably be a pretty smart one. I think Winovitch will be good for the Patriots. I think he could, at the very least, just be a rotational guy. They did lose Trey Flowers in the offseason, and that's the kind of production that you just can't really replace. He's just such a talented guy. But, you know, adding a talented guy like Winovitch could definitely be something that maybe he's obviously not going to be Trey Flowers, but he still could be a solid player. And that's all you really want. You know, my mindset has always kind of been, first round, you want a Pro Bowler, second round, you want a starter, and then third round, you want a role player. And I absolutely believe that Winovitch will at the very least be a solid role player.